Maya Johnson wiped her brow with the back of her hand as she balanced 3 plates of sizzling steak on her forearm. The fancy restaurant, with its crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, was packed tonight. 6 hours into her double shift, her feet were killing her, but she couldn't afford to slow down. Not when her night school tuition was due next week. "Table 7 needs more bread," called out Luis, another waiter rushing past with a tray of cocktails. Maya nodded, mentally adding it to her growing to-do list. At 28, she had mastered the art of remembering a dozen orders without writing them down. It was a point of pride for her, something that often earned her extra tips from impressed customers. The kitchen doors swung open as she pushed through, the noise level dropping instantly. She placed the dirty dishes in the bin and grabbed the steaks for table 12. "Those are for the Blackwell party," Chef Raymond said, adding a sprig of rosemary to each plate. "Be careful with that one. He's been sending back drinks all night." Maya had heard of Richard Blackwell. Who in New York hadn't? His face was plastered across buildings he owned and on business magazines. Worth billions from real estate and tech investments, he had a reputation for being brilliant, but impossible to please. "Got it," Maya said, arranging the plates perfectly on her tray. She took a deep breath before pushing back into the dining room. The noise washed over her again. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations, occasional bursts of laughter. She weaved through the tables with practiced ease, smiling at regular customers as she passed. Table 12 was in the corner, the best spot in the house. 5 men in expensive suits sat around it, with Richard Blackwell at the head. Even sitting. "Down," he commanded attention. Tall, with salt and pepper hair and a watch that probably cost more than Maya's yearly rent, he was in the middle of saying something that had the others leaning in. "And that's when I told him, either sell now, or watch me build right next door and drive your property value into the ground." Blackwell finished as Maya approached. The men laughed. Not because it was particularly funny, Maya thought, but because that's what you did when a billionaire made a joke. "Gentlemen, your steaks," Maya announced with a warm smile. "Medium. Rare for you, sir," she said, placing the first plate down. "Medium for you." She continued around the table, carefully setting each dish in front of its rightful owner. The men barely acknowledged her, continuing their conversation about some merger they were planning. As Maya reached across to place Blackwell's plate, rare with extra truffle butter, her elbow bumped a water glass. She tried to catch it, but it tipped, sending ice water across the table and directly onto Blackwell's lap. The conversation stopped instantly. "I am so sorry, sir," Maya said, already grabbing napkins from her apron pocket. "Let me help clean that up right away." Blackwell stood slowly, water dripping from his custom-tailored pants onto his leather shoes that probably cost more than Maya's car. "Do you have any idea?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "How much these shoes cost?" Maya swallowed hard. "I'm truly sorry, sir. It was an accident." "An accident?" His voice rose slightly. "An accident is what happens when competent people make a mistake. This," he gestured at his wet pants and shoes, "is what happens when restaurants hire people who don't belong in establishments like this." The table had gone silent. In fact, Maya realized with growing horror, much of the restaurant had quieted, people turning to watch the scene unfolding. "I'll get you more napkins right away," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "No," Blackwell said, his eyes cold. "What you'll do is kneel down right now and dry my shoes with your apron." Maya froze. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Blackwell pointed to the floor. "Kneel and shine my shoes now." The command rang out across the now silent restaurant. Maya felt every eye on her, her cheeks burning with humiliation. In 10 years of waiting tables, she'd dealt with rude customers, with people who talked down to her, with drunk businessmen who got handsy. But never had anyone spoken to her like she was nothing. She thought about her mother, who had cleaned houses for rich families for 30 years with a smile on her face and steel in her spine, who had taught Maya that doing honest work was nothing to be ashamed of, but allowing someone to strip away your dignity was. "Sir, I'll bring you fresh napkins and our manager right away," Maya said. "But I won't be kneeling." Blackwell's eyebrows shot up. One of his dining companions coughed uncomfortably. "Perhaps you didn't hear me?" Blackwell said, his voice rising. "Or perhaps you don't understand who I am. I could buy this entire restaurant with what I spend on lunch in a month. So, when I tell you to clean my shoes, that's exactly what you'll do if you want to keep your job." Maya felt a tremble start in her hands. She needed this job. The tips from this restaurant were paying for her business classes. Her rent was due next week. Her younger brother's college application fees needed to be paid. But some things cost more than money. "Sir," she said, meeting his gaze directly, "I understand who you are, but I also know who I am. I'm the person serving your food tonight, not the person shining your shoes. I'm happy to help clean up this mess and make things right, but I won't kneel." A few tables away, someone started to clap, then quickly stopped when Blackwell shot a glare in that direction. "You're fired," he said flatly. "Where's the manager?" "Manager." His voice boomed across the restaurant. Thomas, the floor manager, appeared almost instantly, his face a mask of professional concern. "Is there a problem, Mr. Blackwell?" "This server," Blackwell spat the word, "spilled water all over me and then refused to clean it up." "I offered to bring napkins and help," Maya interjected. "I didn't refuse to clean up. I refused to kneel and shine his shoes with my apron." Thomas's eyes widened slightly, darting between Maya and the powerful billionaire. "I want her fired," Blackwell continued. "Right now, in fact, I want her escorted from the building." Maya felt her heart sink. Thomas was a decent boss, fair and usually supportive of his staff, but Blackwell and his business associates probably dropped thousands of dollars here every month. No restaurant could afford to lose that kind of customer. "Mr. Blackwell, I apologize for the incident," Thomas began carefully. "I'll have another server take over your table immediately, and of course your meals tonight will be complimentary." "That's not what I asked for," Blackwell said coldly. "I want her gone. Now." The restaurant remained eerily quiet. Maya could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. A table of 4 near the window had their phones out, recording the whole thing. "Great," Maya thought. "I'll be a viral sensation, as the waitress who lost her job because she wouldn't bow to a billionaire." "I understand, sir," Thomas said, his voice tight. He turned to Maya. "Maya, please go to my office. I'll be there shortly." Maya nodded, untying her apron with shaking hands. She'd held her ground, but at what cost? Jobs like this weren't easy to come by, especially ones that worked around her class schedule. As she turned to leave, one of Blackwell's dining companions, a younger man with kind eyes, spoke up. "Richard, is this really necessary?" It was clearly an accident. "Stay out of this, David," Blackwell snapped. "When you're running a business, you'll understand that standards matter. People need to know their place." Maya paused, those last words hitting her like a physical blow. People need to know their place. Like she was less than him, less worthy of basic respect because she carried plates instead of buying buildings. She turned back around slowly. "Mr. Blackwell," she said, her voice clear despite her racing heart. "My place tonight was as your server. I was doing my job and I made a mistake, which I apologized for. But my place in the world isn't beneath you. Not beneath anyone." A murmur ran through the restaurant. Someone at the bar whispered, "Oh snap." Blackwell's face flushed red. "You have no idea who you're talking to. I could make sure you never work in this city again." "Maybe," Maya acknowledged. "You have that kind of power. But tonight, you use that power to try to make another human being kneel at your feet over a water spill. I think that says more about your place than mine." With that, she turned and walked toward the back office, her head high despite the tears threatening to spill over. She had no idea what would happen next, but in this moment, she knew her mother would be proud, and somehow that was enough. Behind her, she heard a woman say, "I got that whole thing on video." Another voice replied, "Send it to me. People need to see this." Maya pushed through the kitchen doors, wondering if she'd just committed career suicide or done the bravest thing of her life. Maybe both. The walk to Thomas's office felt like the longest of Maya's life. Each step echoed her racing thoughts. What have I done? Where will I work? How will I pay tuition? She sank into the chair. Across from Thomas's desk, her legs suddenly too weak to hold her. The office was small but neat, with schedules pinned to a corkboard and a photo of Thomas's family on the desk. Just yesterday, this had been a normal room where they discussed shift changes. Now it felt like a place where dreams went to die. 5 minutes passed. 10. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. 3 texts from Luis. What happened? Everyone's talking about it. Did you really tell off Richard Blackwell? She couldn't bring herself to respond. The reality of what she'd done was sinking in. Standing up to Blackwell had felt right in the moment, but now the consequences loomed large. Her rent was due in 2 weeks. Her tuition payment was scheduled for Monday. Her brother was counting on her help with his college applications. The door opened and Thomas walked in, his face unreadable. He closed the door carefully before sitting down. So, he said, folding his hands on the desk. That was quite a scene out there. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. In 15 years of restaurant management, I've never seen anything quite like it. Thomas leaned back in his chair. Do you know what Blackwell did after you left? Maya shook her head, bracing for the worst. He demanded to speak to the owner, threatened to call his lawyer, said he'd make sure this place shut down within a month. Thomas ran a hand through his thinning hair. Then he threw cash on the table and stormed out with his entire party. Maya's stomach dropped. Thomas, I'm so sorry. I never meant to. Thomas held up a hand. Let me finish. After Blackwell left, something strange happened. 3 different tables asked for the check, and I thought, great, we're losing all our business tonight. But they weren't leaving because they were upset. A small smile crossed his face. They were leaving bigger tips than usual with notes that said things like, for Maya, and standing with your staff. Maya blinked in surprise. And then Mrs. Chen, you know, the older lady who comes in every Thursday for the salmon, she grabbed my arm and said, you better not fire that girl, or I'm taking my business elsewhere. Mrs. Chen, who never speaks above a whisper. A tiny flicker of hope sparked in Maya's chest. So, am I fired? Thomas sighed heavily. Maya, I've got to be honest with you. Blackwell's party spends thousands here every month. They host business dinners, bring clients. It's a significant chunk of our revenue. The hope dimmed. Of course, business was business. But, Thomas continued, I've never liked the way he treats our staff. Always demanding, never pleased, acting like everyone's beneath him. And what he asked you to do tonight? Thomas shook his head. That crossed a line. Maya waited, hardly daring to breathe. The owner's on his way in. He'll make the final call. But I want you to know, I'm going to fight for you to keep your job. Relief washed over her so strongly that tears sprang to her eyes. Thank you, Thomas. Don't thank me yet, he warned. Lyle might still decide Blackwell's business is too valuable to lose, but whatever happens, I want you to know that I respect how you handled yourself out there. Standing up for your dignity without being disrespectful, that takes character. Knock at the door interrupted them. Luis poked his head in, his usually cheerful face serious. Sorry to interrupt, but Maya needs to see something. He held out his phone. It's already got 15,000 views. Maya took the phone, confused. On the screen was a video titled, Billionaire tells waitress to kneel and shine his shoes. Her response is, everything. The thumbnail showed the exact moment when Maya had refused to kneel. Oh no, she whispered, pressing play. The video, shot from a nearby table, captured the entire exchange clearly. Blackwell's demand, her refusal, his threat, and her final statement about power and place. In just 20 minutes, it had racked up thousands of comments, most of them supporting her. It's on Twitter, too, Luis said. People are sharing it like crazy. Someone figured out it was Blackwell and tagged him. It's becoming a whole thing. Maya handed the phone back, feeling dizzy. This is not how I wanted to become famous. Famous might be the right word, Thomas said, looking at his own. Phone now. Local news is calling the restaurant for a statement. Just then, Thomas's phone rang. He checked the screen and grimaced. It's Lyle. I should take this. Maya and Luis stepped out of the office to give him privacy. In the hallway, the kitchen, staff were huddled around another phone watching the video. When they saw Maya, they broke into applause. We heard everything through the kitchen doors, said Chef Raymond, giving her a rare smile. About time someone stood up to that jerk. You're trending, girl, said Zoe, one of the hostesses, showing Maya her phone. Neil and Shine was just born. Maya felt overwhelmed. What had started as a simple accident was snowballing into something much bigger than her. She just wanted to do her job, earn her tips, and get through school. She never asked to become some kind of symbol. The back door opened, and Lyle Pearson, the restaurant owner, walked in. A short man with expensive taste in suits, he nodded curtly to the staff before motioning to Maya. Let's talk in my office, he said, walking past without waiting for a response. The kitchen fell silent. Luis squeezed Maya's arm in support as she followed Lyle down the hall to the larger corner office. Unlike Thomas's practical workspace, Lyle's office was designed to impress with awards on the walls and a massive desk that made him appear larger than he was. Sit, he said, pointing to a chair as he settled behind the desk. Maya sat back straight, hands folded in her lap to hide their trembling. I've seen the video, Lyle began without preamble, and I've spoken with Blackwell's assistant. He's demanding an apology and your termination, or he'll pull all his business and encourage others to do the same. Maya nodded, unsurprised. The thing is, Lyle continued, studying her face, I've also received 47 emails in the last half hour from people saying they'll boycott this place if we fire you. He tapped his fingers on the desk. So it seems I'm in a bind. I understand it's a difficult position, Maya said carefully, and I apologize for putting the restaurant in this situation. I never intended to cause a scene. Yet you refused a direct request from our most valuable customer. Maya took a deep breath. I refused to kneel and shine his shoes with my apron. That's not the same as refusing to serve him properly or help clean up the spill. There's a line between service and servitude, Mr. Pearson. He crossed it. Lyle leaned back, studying her. You know, my grandmother was a housekeeper for a wealthy family on Park Avenue. She used to tell me stories about how they treated her, how she'd have to use the service entrance, eat in the kitchen, become invisible when they had guests. He paused. She worked there for 40 years, saving every penny to put my father through college. Never complained, never talked back. Maya waited, unsure where this was going. I always admired her sacrifice, Lyle continued. But there were nights I'd find her crying in the bathroom and I wondered, what was it costing her? Her dignity? Her spirit? Was that part of the job too? He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the alley behind the restaurant. I built this place from nothing, he said. Mortgaged everything I had. Worked 100 hours a week. For years. I know the value of $1 and Blackwell's business is worth a lot of dollars. He turned back to face her. But some things are worth more. Maya hardly dared to hope. Thomas tells me you're working your way through business school. Yes, sir. Night classes at the city college. I'm studying restaurant management and entrepreneurship. A small smile crossed Lyle's face. Good for you. He returned to his desk and sat down. Here's what's going to happen. You're not fired. Maya's shoulders sagged with relief. In fact, I'm promoting you to head waitress for the dinner shift. With a $1.50 raise per hour. Maya's jaw dropped. Sir? The video makes it clear you handled yourself with more professionalism than Blackwell did. That's the kind of composure I want in a head waitress. Lyle leaned forward. But understand this. We're likely to lose Blackwell's business, and possibly some of his associates. That means we'll need to tighten our belts for a while. The raise isn't much, but it's what I can offer right now. I thank you, Mr. Pearson. I don't know what to say. Say you'll help me draft a statement for the press. They're circling like sharks, and we need to get ahead of this story. Maya nodded, still stunned by the turn of events. One more thing, Lyle added. Whatever happens with this video, whatever people say about you being brave or standing up to power, Remember that your first job is still to provide excellent service to every customer who walks through our door. The rich ones, the poor ones, the nice ones, the jerks, everyone gets our best. Clear? Crystal clear, sir. Good. Now go home, get some rest. Tomorrow's likely to be interesting. Maya stood, legs steadier now. Thank you for believing in me. Lyle waved her thanks away. Don't make me regret it. As Maya left the office, the staff were waiting, faces anxious. When she gave them a thumbs up, cheers erupted. Luis hugged her, lifting her off the ground in his excitement. I knew Lyle wouldn't. Fire you, you're the best server we have, Maya laughed, feeling lighter than she had in hours. He promoted me to head waitress. More cheers followed this announcement, along with a few good-natured groans about having to take orders from her now. As Maya gathered her things to leave, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Viral video shows NYC waitress standing up to billionaire. Below it was a still from the video, her face clearly visible as she stood her ground against Blackwell. Reality crashed back. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Tomorrow people would recognize her. They'd have opinions. They'd want to hear her story, to make her a hero or a villain in their own narratives, all because she'd refused to kneel. You okay? Zoe asked, noticing her expression. Maya put her phone away and nodded. Yeah, just realizing I might need to turn off my social media for a while. Smart move. But hey, at least you've still got a job. And a raise. And my dignity, Maya added quietly. That's worth something, too. As Maya walked out into the cool night air, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from her mother. Just saw the video. Your father would have been so proud. I know I am. Tears pricked Maya's eyes. Her father had passed away 3 years ago, working right up until the end despite his illness, never once complaining about the factory job that slowly destroyed his lungs. He'd always told Maya, they can take your job, but they can't take your self-respect unless you give it away. Tonight she'd held on to hers. Whatever came next, the attention, the backlash, the support, she'd face it knowing she'd stayed true to herself when it mattered most. And somehow, that made everything else seem manageable. Maya woke to the sound of her phone buzzing itself, off her nightstand. Squinting at the clock, 5:37 a.m., she groaned and reached for the device. 63 missed calls, over 200 text messages, thousands of notifications from social media apps she rarely used. What in the world, she mumbled, sitting up in bed. Then yesterday's events came flooding back. The water spill, Blackwell's demand, her refusal, the video. One text from Luis stood out. Turn on the news! Grabbing the remote, Maya flipped on her small TV to find her own face staring back at her from the morning news. The anchor was mid-sentence, quickly amassing over 3 million views overnight. The waitress identified as Maya Johnson has become an overnight sensation for standing up to billionaire Richard Blackwell when he demanded she kneel to clean his shoes. Oh no, Maya whispered, watching footage of herself on the screen. They were interviewing random people on the street now, asking for their opinions. She's my hero, said one woman. It's about time someone stood up to these rich guys who think they own everything. Totally unprofessional, countered a man in a business suit. In the service industry, the customer is always right. She should have just apologized and moved on. Maya turned off the TV, feeling sick. This wasn't what she wanted. She wasn't trying to make a statement or become a symbol. She'd just reacted. In the moment, protecting her dignity. Her phone rang again. Unknown number. She declined it, only for another call to immediately take its place. After the 5th consecutive unknown caller, she turned off her phone completely. The shower did little to wash away her anxiety. As she dressed for her morning class, she wondered if she should even go. Would people recognize her? Would professors treat her differently? Maybe she should just stay home until this all blew over. But hiding felt wrong, like she was ashamed of what she'd done. And she wasn't. Nervous about the attention, yes. Worried about the consequences, absolutely. But ashamed? Samaya grabbed her backpack, put on a baseball cap and sunglasses, and headed out. As she walked to the bus stop, she kept her head down, half expecting someone to point and shout, "That's her, the waitress from the video." No one did. The morning, commuters were too busy with their own lives to notice her. On the bus, a woman was watching the viral video on her phone, but she never looked up to see that its subject was sitting 3 seats away. Maya arrived at the college campus and hurried to her business ethics class, slipping into a back row seat just as Professor Wilson was beginning the lecture. "Before we dive into today's topic," the professor said, "I want to discuss a real-world case study that's making headlines this morning." Maya sank lower in her seat as the familiar video appeared on the projector screen. "This incident raises several interesting ethical questions," Professor Wilson continued after the clip ended. "What responsibilities do businesses have toward their employees' dignity? What moral obligations do wealthy individuals have when wielding power over those in service positions? I'd like you all to consider—" "She's right there," a voice interrupted, and Maya felt every head in the room turned toward her. Professor Wilson peered over his glasses. "Ms. Johnson, is that you?" Slowly, Maya removed her sunglasses and nodded. For a moment, the classroom was silent. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in, until most of the class was applauding while Maya wished the floor would open up and swallow her. "Well," Professor Wilson said when the applause died down, "it seems we have the unique opportunity to hear directly from someone at the center of this ethical situation. Ms. Johnson, would you be willing to share your perspective with the class?" Every law instinct told Maya to refuse, to run from the room, to hide from the attention. But she thought of her mother's text. "Your father would have been so proud." She stood, legs shaking slightly. "What happened last night wasn't planned. Mr. Blackwell made a demand that crossed a line, and I made a split-second decision to refuse. I wasn't trying to make a statement about wealth inequality or workplace dignity. I was just being human." "And yet," Professor Wilson said thoughtfully, "your individual action has sparked a national conversation about exactly those issues. Does that surprise you?" Maya considered the question. "I think it shows that what happened touched something many people have experienced, maybe not in such an extreme way, but the feeling of being treated as less than human because of your job or your background. That's something a lot of people understand." The discussion continued for the entire class period, with Maya finding herself answering questions she'd never considered before. What gave her the courage to stand up? Would she have responded differently if she didn't need the job so badly? Did she consider the potential impact on her coworkers? By the time class ended, Maya felt drained, but also strangely energized. Talking about the incident had helped her process it, to see it not just as something that happened to her, but as part of a larger conversation about dignity and respect. As she gathered her things to leave, Professor Wilson approached. "That was very brave, Ms. Johnson, both last night and today." He handed her a business card. "A friend of mine runs a non-profit focused on workplace rights. She'd be very interested in speaking with you if you're willing." Maya took the card, not sure what to say. "No pressure," he added. "But sometimes life puts us in positions where we can make a difference. Think about it." Outside the classroom, Maya checked her phone, which had been buzzing continuously in her pocket. Among the flood of notifications was a text from Thomas. "Media camping outside the restaurant. Lyle says take tonight off paid. Come in tomorrow through the back door." Relief and disappointment mingled. She needed the money from tonight's own shift, but the thought of facing reporters was overwhelming. Another message caught her eye, this one from an unfamiliar number. "Ms. Johnson, this is Diane Lee from Good Morning America. We'd like to invite you for an interview tomorrow morning. We can offer a $3,000 appearance fee. Please call me at this number." $3,000. That was more than a month's worth of tips. It would cover her tuition payment and leave enough for rent, but the thought of going on national television made her stomach turn. What would she even say? What if she made a fool of herself? As Maya walked across campus, she noticed people looking at her, whispering to each other. Some smiled or gave her thumbs up. One girl asked for a selfie, which Maya awkwardly declined. Her phone buzzed with another text. This one from Luis. "You're not going to believe this. Blackwell's company stock dropped 3% this morning after the video went viral. Business channels are talking about it." Maya stopped walking, stunned. How could her interaction with one man affect the value of an entire company? It seemed impossible, yet there it was. By the time Maya reached her tiny apartment, she was exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day. She threw her backpack on the couch and was about to collapse beside it when a knock came at the door. Cautiously, she peered through the peephole to see a middle-aged woman in a crisp suit holding a folder. "Ms. Johnson?" the woman called through the door. "My name is Patricia Williams. I'm an attorney. I'd like to speak with you about your options." "My options?" Maya repeated, not opening the door. "Yes, regarding potential legal action against Mr. Blackwell for workplace harassment and creating a hostile environment. Several firms are interested in representing you, including mine." Maya leaned her forehead against the door. "I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in suing anyone. Please leave. You should at least hear what we're offering. This could be worth a significant settlement." "No, thank you," Maya said firmly. "Goodbye." She waited until she heard footsteps retreating before moving away from the door. Within minutes, there was another knock. This time, Maya didn't even check who it was. "I told you, I'm not interested in suing anyone," she called. "Maya, it's me, honey." Maya's heart leapt at the sound of her mother's voice. She flung open the door and threw herself into her mother's arms. Grace Johnson held her daughter tightly. At 58, she was still strong from years of physical work, her hands calloused but gentle as they rubbed Maya's back. "I saw the news and took the afternoon off," Grace explained, guiding Maya to the couch. "I figured you might need some support." Maya nodded, suddenly fighting tears. "It's crazy, Mom. Everyone's calling and texting. People I haven't heard from in years. News shows want interviews, lawyers want me to sue, and I just want to go back to normal." Grace smiled sadly. "I don't think normal is on the menu right now, baby. But that doesn't mean you have to do anything you don't want to do." "I don't know what I want," Maya admitted. "Part of me wants to hide until everyone forgets about this. But another part feels like maybe this happened for a reason. Like maybe I should use this attention to say something that matters." "You already did," Grace said. "You showed people that standing up for yourself doesn't have to be loud or angry. It can be dignified and strong." She squeezed Maya's hand. "Just like your father taught you." Maya wiped away a tear. "I miss him." "He's with you," Grace assured her. "In every choice you make and how you carry yourself." She straightened Maya's collar affectionately. "Now, let's figure out how to handle all this attention. You need a plan." They spent the next few hours creating a strategy. Maya would do one television interview, not for the money, but to control her own narrative. She would respectfully decline all legal offers. She would return to work tomorrow with her head held high. And she would use her platform, however temporary it might be, to talk about workplace dignity for service workers. As Grace cooked dinner in Maya's tiny kitchen, Maya's phone rang with yet another unknown number. She was about to ignore it when she noticed the area code matched Blackwell Industries headquarters. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Ms. Johnson, this is David Chen, Chief Operations Officer at Blackwell Industries." It was the younger man who had spoken up for her at the dinner. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "No, it's fine," Maya said, surprised. "What can I do for you, Mr. Chen?" "I wanted to apologize personally for what happened last night. Mr. Blackwell's behavior was completely unacceptable, and it doesn't reflect our company's values." Maya almost laughed at that. "With all due respect, Mr. Chen, when the person whose name is on the building acts that way, it does reflect your company's values." There was a pause, then a soft chuckle. "You're right. And that's exactly the kind of straight talk we need more of." His voice became more serious. "The board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Richard's behavior has caused significant damage to our reputation and our stock value. Several major investors have expressed concerns." "I'm sorry to hear that," Maya said, though she wasn't entirely sure if she meant it. But why are you telling me this? Because actions have consequences, Ms. Johnson, for everyone involved. Richard is learning that lesson right now. And I wanted you to know that not everyone at Blackwell Industries shares his perspective. After she hung up, Maya sat quietly, processing the conversation. The mighty Richard Blackwell facing consequences from his own board of directors because of how he treated a waitress. There was a certain poetic justice to it. Grace called her for dinner, and as they ate, Maya's phone continued to buzz with messages and calls. But for the first time since the video went viral, the notifications didn't fill her with dread. Instead, she felt a growing sense of purpose. This unexpected spotlight wouldn't last forever. Soon, another story would capture the public's attention, and Maya would return to relative anonymity. But while the world was watching, maybe she could use their attention to say something worthwhile, about dignity, about respect, about the value of all work. "What are you thinking about?" Grace asked, noticing Maya's thoughtful expression. Maya smiled. "I'm thinking Dad was right. Standing up for yourself isn't just about you. Sometimes it's about everyone who's ever been in your shoes." Grace nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "That's my girl." Later that night, after her mother had gone home, Maya sat down to write out what she wanted to say in her one television interview. She didn't know if anyone would listen or care, but she knew she had to try. This strange, unexpected moment in the spotlight wasn't just about a spilled glass of water or a billionaire's bruised ego. It was about something much bigger, something that had been building long before Maya took her stand. And for however long people were paying attention, she intended to make it count. 2 weeks passed in a blur of attention Maya never wanted. Her interview on Good Morning America had gone viral, spawning countless reaction videos and think pieces. Neil and Shine had evolved into a broader conversation about workplace dignity. Restaurant workers across the country shared their own stories of mistreatment by wealthy customers. Several celebrities had tweeted their support. A famous actress even wore a "Won't Kneel" t-shirt on a talk show. Through it all, Maya had tried to keep her life as normal as possible. She still attended her classes. She still worked her shifts at the restaurant, though Lyle had hired a security guard to keep reporters and gawkers at bay. She still helped her younger brother with his college applications. But normal felt like a distant memory now. Strangers stopped her on the street to take selfies. Her social media followers had ballooned from a few hundred friends to over 500,000 people. Companies offered her money to promote their products, which she politely declined. She'd even been invited to speak at a service workers rally in Washington, D.C. next month. The most surreal moment had been opening her mail to find a letter from a young woman in Kansas. "Watching you stand up for yourself gave me the courage to quit my job where my boss had been harassing me for months. Thank you for showing me that my dignity matters." That letter now sat on Maya's refrigerator, a reminder that her private moment had become something much bigger than herself. Tonight's dinner shift was unusually busy for a Tuesday. Maya suspected it had something to do with the viral TikTok, posted yesterday by a food influencer who'd visited the restaurant specifically to meet her. "Table 7 needs more wine," Maya told Luis as they passed in the narrow hallway between the dining room and kitchen. "And table 12 is ready to order dessert." "Got it," Luis nodded. "By the way, there's a weird vibe at table 4. Guy in the corner wearing sunglasses indoors. Been here an hour and barely touched his food. Keeps watching you." Maya frowned. "Reporter, probably. Or another lawyer hoping to convince me to sue Blackwell." "Want me to have Tony escort him out?" Luis asked, referring to the security guard who now stood by the restaurant entrance. "No, it's fine. As long as he's not bothering anyone, he can stay." Maya adjusted her apron and picked up a tray of drinks. "I'll check on him after I deliver these." The restaurant hummed with conversation and laughter. In the 2 weeks since the incident, business had actually increased. People came hoping to catch a glimpse of the waitress who stood up to a billionaire. But they stayed for Chef Raymond's excellent food and the warm atmosphere Lyle had cultivated over the years. Maya delivered the drinks with a smile, chatting briefly with the customers, a family celebrating a graduation. They didn't mention the video, which she appreciated. Some patrons were tactful, Others immediately asked for selfies or wanted to hear her side of the story. As she finished with the family, Maya glanced toward table 4. The man in sunglasses was indeed watching her, his food pushed to the side, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Something about his posture seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. Straightening her shoulders, Maya approached his table. "How is everything tonight, sir? Can I get you anything else?" The man looked up, and even through the dark glasses she felt the intensity of his gaze. "The salmon is excellent," he said, his voice instantly recognizable despite its softer tone. Maya froze. Richard Blackwell. He removed his sunglasses, confirming what his voice had already revealed. Without the arrogance that had dominated their last encounter, she could see the signs of strain on his face, the shadows under his eyes, the tight line of his mouth. "I was hoping we might speak privately," he said quietly. "After your shift, perhaps?" Maya's heart pounded. Part of her wanted to turn and walk away. Another part wanted to call Tony over and have Blackwell removed. But curiosity won out. "I'm done at 10, she said. "There's a coffee shop around the corner that stays open late." Blackwell nodded. "I'll be there." For the rest of her shift, Maya moved through her duties in a daze. What could Blackwell possibly want? Was this some kind of trap? Would there be lawyers waiting at the coffee shop? Or worse, reporters? She considered texting her mother or calling Lyle for advice, but decided against it. Whatever Blackwell wanted, she could handle it herself. She'd already faced him at his worst and survived. At 10:15, Maya pushed open the door to Night Owl Coffee, scanning the nearly empty shop. Blackwell sat in a corner booth, a steaming cup in front of him, no sunglasses now. She ordered a chai tea at the counter before joining him. "Thank you for coming," he said, as she slid into the booth across from him. Maya said nothing, waiting. Blackwell cleared his throat. "My PR team has prepared a statement for me to read to you." He pulled out a folded paper from his jacket pocket, then stared at it for a long moment before setting it aside. "But that feels insufficient." "Why are you here, Mr. Blackwell?" Maya asked directly. He looked up, meeting her eyes. 2 weeks ago, I treated you in a way that was beneath both of us. I came to apologize." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of insincerity. "Is this because your stock dropped? Or because your board is unhappy with the negative publicity?" A flash of irritation crossed his face, but he controlled it quickly. "Those are fair questions. Yes, there's been fallout. Significant fallout. 3 major investors have pulled out of deals we were negotiating. Our stock is down 11%. The board called an emergency meeting where my leadership was questioned. So this is damage control." "It started that way," Blackwell admitted. "My PR team insisted I make a public apology, try to get ahead of the narrative." He tapped the unused statement on the table. "But something happened during that board meeting. David Chen, you might remember him from that night. He said something that's been stuck in my head ever since." "What was that?" Maya asked, curious despite herself. Said, "Richard, this isn't about a spilled drink or a viral video. It's about who you've become." And then he told the story of how we met 20 years ago when I was just starting out. Blackwell's eyes grew distant with the memory. "I was working 80-hour weeks, living on ramen, pouring everything into my first real estate deal. A pipe burst in the building I was renovating, flooding everything, threatening to bankrupt me before I'd even begun." He took a sip of his coffee before continuing. "David was a plumber then. He came in at midnight, worked until dawn to fix it, saved the project. When I tried to pay him extra for the emergency work, he refused. Said, 'We're just 2 guys trying to build something. Today you needed my help. Tomorrow I might need yours.'" Maya remained silent, unsure where this story was leading. "That was who I was then," Blackwell said softly. "Someone who saw the dignity in all work. Someone who understood that success isn't just about what you build, but how you build it." He shook his head. "Somewhere along the way, I lost that." The barista brought Maya's chai. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug, considering his words. Mr. Blackwell. Richard, please. Richard, she amended. I appreciate that you've done some reflection, but I'm not sure what you want from me. Nothing, he said quickly. I don't expect forgiveness or understanding. I just wanted to apologize face to face, not through a prepared statement or a PR team. What I did was wrong, not just rude or inappropriate, deeply wrong. It revealed an ugliness in me that I'm not proud of. Maya took a sip of her tea, buying time to process his words. They seemed genuine, but she'd learned to be skeptical of powerful people and their motivations. Can I ask you something? She said finally. Of course. That night when you told me to kneel and shine your shoes, what was going through your mind? What did you see when you looked at me? Blackwell flinched slightly at the directness of her question. He was silent for a long moment, seeming to search for the right words. I didn't see you, he admitted finally. Not as a person. I saw a function, a role, someone whose job was to serve me. It's not an excuse, but I've lived in a bubble for so long, surrounded by people who say yes to everything I want. It warps your perception of the world, of other people. He looked down at his hands. I've been thinking a lot about power lately, how it can corrupt not just your actions but your vision. You stop seeing people as equals. You start believing your time, your convenience, your desires matter more than anyone else's. And now? Maya pressed. What do you see when you look at me now? Blackwell met her gaze directly. I see someone who had the courage to do what no one in my life has done in years. Tell me no. Set a boundary. Remind me that my money doesn't make me more human than anyone else. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I see someone taking business classes, at night while working double shifts. Someone with more dignity and strength of character than most of the executives I deal with daily. Despite herself, Maya felt a flicker of compassion for the man across from her. Not because he deserved it, necessarily, but because she recognized something human in his struggle. The universal challenge of seeing past one's own perspective. I'm teaching a course now, Blackwell continued, at the business school downtown, Ethical Leadership in the Digital Age. The dean called after the video went viral, said it would be good PR for me to show I'm learning from my mistakes. He laughed softly. I expected to phone it in, make a donation, have my name on a building, but I found myself actually caring about it. About what these young business students learn about power and responsibility. That's good, Maya said cautiously. In my first lecture, I showed them the video of our encounter. Blackwell watched her face carefully. I asked them what they saw. Do you know what most of them said? Maya shook her head. They said they saw the future of business, not in my behavior, but in yours. In your refusal to sacrifice dignity for a paycheck. He leaned forward slightly. The world is changing, Miss Johnson. The old model of power, where wealth equals the right to demand anything from those with less. It's dying, and people like you are helping to kill it. Maya wasn't sure how to respond to that. It felt too grand, too significant a role to assign to what had been for her a simple act of self-preservation. I think you're giving me too much credit, she said finally. I wasn't trying to change the world or make some grand statement about power dynamics. I was just protecting myself in that moment. Sometimes the most powerful acts are the ones we do simply to preserve our own humanity, Blackwell replied. Those ripple outward in ways we never intended. They sat in silence for a moment, the late-night quiet of the coffee shop enveloping them. A clock ticked on the wall. The barista wiped down counters, glancing occasionally at their corner booth. What now? Maya asked eventually. You've apologized, is that the end of it? Blackwell hesitated. There's something else. A proposal, not a request. He pulled a business card from his pocket and slid it across the table. Blackwell Industries is establishing a new department, corporate ethics and community engagement. I'd like to offer you a position? Maya stared at the card in disbelief. You want to hire me? The board suggested it, actually, said it would show we're serious about changing our corporate culture. He smiled ruefully. But that's not why I'm offering. I'm offering because in 5 minutes of standing your ground, you showed more integrity than most people I know demonstrate in a lifetime. That's the kind of perspective we need. Maya pushed the card back toward him. I'm not finished with my degree, and honestly, I'm not sure working for you is the right move for me. I understand. Blackwell nodded. The offer remains open whenever you finish your studies. In the meantime, I'd like to offer you a full scholarship to complete your business degree. Maya's eyes narrowed. Why? What do you get out of this? Redemption? A clear conscience? Blackwell shrugged. Or maybe I just want to invest in someone who has the potential to build something better than I did. Maya considered his offer. A scholarship would change everything for her. No more double shifts, no more choosing between textbooks and groceries. Time to actually study, to develop her own business ideas. But it also felt like a transaction, his money in exchange for public forgiveness, for closing the chapter on an embarrassing incident. I need to think about it, she said finally. Of course, take all the time you need. Blackwell stood, leaving the business card on the table. Whatever you decide, I want you to know that you've taught me something valuable, something I'd forgotten or perhaps never truly understood. He extended his hand. Thank you for that. After a moment's hesitation, Maya shook it. His grip was firm, but not dominating, different from the man she'd encountered 2 weeks ago. As Blackwell turned to leave, Maya called after him. Richard? He paused, looking back. That class you're teaching, what's the most important lesson you want those students to learn? A thoughtful expression crossed his face. That true leadership isn't about making people kneel. It's about giving them the space and support to stand tall. He smiled slightly. I'm still learning that myself. After he left, Maya remained at the table, turning the business card over in her hands. The weight of the decision felt enormous, not just for her future, but for what it would mean about forgiveness, about accountability, about the possibility of genuine change. Outside the coffee shop window, the city glowed with nighttime energy. People hurried past, each carrying their own stories, their own struggles, their own moments of standing or kneeling. Maya watched them, feeling strangely connected to each passing stranger. All of them navigating the same fundamental human challenge: how to move through the world with dignity intact, how to build relationships across lines of power and difference, how to hold both accountability and the possibility of growth in the same hand. Whatever she decided about Blackwell's offer, Maya knew one thing for certain. She would never again doubt the value of her own voice, her own boundaries, her own worth. And that perhaps was the greatest gift to come from that moment when she refused to kneel. 6 months had passed since the night that changed everything. The viral moment had faded from public consciousness, replaced by newer outrage cycles and celebrity scandals. Maya could go days now without someone recognizing her or mentioning the incident, as she'd come to call it. Life had settled into a new rhythm. After much consideration, she'd accepted Blackwell's scholarship offer but declined the job. The financial support allowed her to reduce her hours at the restaurant to weekends only, focusing on her studies during the week. Her grades had improved dramatically, and she'd been invited to join the business school's honors program. On this crisp autumn morning, Maya sat in a coffee shop near campus, reviewing notes for her entrepreneurship final. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Have you checked your mail today?" "Not yet," Maya replied. "Why?" "Just wondering if anything interesting came." Her mother texted back with a suspicious number of smiling emojis. Maya smiled, knowing her mother was terrible at keeping secrets. Probably another card from her younger brother, who'd started at State University this fall on a combination of scholarships and grants. He'd made a habit of sending Maya thank you notes, crediting her encouragement for his success. The barista called her name, and Maya collected her latte before returning to her studies. She was deep in a case study analysis when her phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Hello? Ms. Johnson? This is Angela Peterson, Mr. Blackwell's assistant. He was hoping you might be available for a meeting this afternoon." Maya hesitated. She hadn't spoken to Blackwell since that night in the coffee shop, though she received monthly updates on her scholarship from his foundation. May I ask what this is regarding? He'd prefer to discuss it in person. He can meet you wherever is convenient, his office, your campus, a public location of your choosing. Curiosity won out over caution. I can meet at 3 o'clock. There's a park near the business school with a duck pond. Tell him I'll be on. The bench by the water. At precisely 3, Maya watched Richard Blackwell approach across the park. He looked different from their previous encounters. More relaxed in casual slacks and a sweater. Less like a man accustomed to commanding rooms with his presence. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, sitting beside her on the bench. He gestured to the peaceful scene before them, ducks gliding across the water, students lounging on the grass, a street performer playing guitar under a nearby tree. "Nice choice of location." "I come here to think sometimes," Maya said. "Something about the water helps clear my head." Blackwell nodded. "I have a similar spot at my house in the Berkshires. A little stream runs through the property. I've solved more business problems sitting by that water than in any boardroom." They sat in surprisingly comfortable silence for a moment before Maya asked, "So, what did you want to discuss?" "Several things," Blackwell replied. "First, I wanted to see how your studies are progressing." "Very well. I'm maintaining a 3.9 GPA, and my professors seem to think I have a knack for business strategy." "I'm not surprised." Blackwell smiled. "The foundation receives your transcript, but numbers don't tell the whole story." "The scholarship has made a world of difference," Maya acknowledged. "I can actually sleep now instead of constantly juggling work and school." "I'm glad to hear it." Blackwell looked out across the pond. "The second reason I wanted to meet is to share some news. I'm stepping down as CEO of Blackwell Industries at the end of the year." Maya turned to him in surprise. "Retiring?" "Transitioning," he corrected. "I'll remain on the board, but in a less operational role. David Chen will take over as CEO." "The man who spoke up for me that night," Maya recalled. Blackwell nodded. "He's been ready for years, but I was too attached to power to see it." He smiled ruefully. "Amazing how a viral video of you at your worst can clarify your priorities." "What will you do?" Maya asked. "Focus on the foundation." "Teach." "Maybe." "Write a book. How Not to Be a Terrible Human. Lessons from a Reformed Billionaire." He chuckled at his own joke. "But that brings me to my third reason for meeting. I have a proposition for you." Maya tensed slightly, remembering his job offer 6 months ago. Noticing her reaction, Blackwell added quickly, "Not employment. Something different." He reached into his jacket and removed an envelope, handing it to her. Maya opened it, pulling out a formal letter on Blackwell Foundation letterhead. As she read, her eyes widened. "You want to create a service workers' education fund?" "With $10 million? "Initial funding," Blackwell corrected. "The foundation will match donations up to another $20 million over 5 years." Maya continued reading. "And you want me to design and run this program?" "You're uniquely qualified. You've lived the reality these workers face, the struggle to balance education with making ends meet. You understand the system from the inside." Blackwell leaned forward. "This isn't charity, Maya. It's investment in human potential. Think about how many talented people are stuck in jobs below their capabilities simply because they can't afford education or don't have the time to pursue it." Maya stared at the letter, mind racing. "This is a lot to process." "Of course, take all the time you need." Blackwell handed her a second envelope. "One more thing. This came to my office yesterday." Maya opened it to find a formal letter from Branford University's MBA program, one of the most prestigious in the country. "An acceptance letter? I didn't apply here. I took the liberty of recommending you to the dean, an old friend. He reviewed your transcripts and was impressed. They're offering you a full scholarship for their executive MBA program, starting next fall after you complete your undergraduate degree." Maya folded the letter carefully, emotions conflicted. That's incredibly generous, but also presumptuous. You made decisions about my future without consulting me. Blackwell had the grace to look chagrined. You're right. Old habits die hard. I should have asked first if you were interested before making the recommendation. He sighed. I'm still learning how to use influence without overstepping. Maya studied his face. The arrogance that had defined their first meeting was gone, replaced by something more thoughtful, more aware. Why are you doing all this? She asked directly. The scholarship, this foundation proposal, the MBA recommendation, is this still about making amends? Blackwell considered her question carefully. It started that way, he admitted. But it's evolved into something more. That night at the restaurant forced me to confront things about myself I'd been avoiding for years. The person I'd become, the values I'd abandoned in pursuit of wealth and power. He met her eyes. You changed the trajectory of my life, Maya. Not because you humiliated me or cost me money, though both those things happened, but because you showed me a kind of courage I'd forgotten existed. He gestured to the park around them. Look at these students all racing toward success, toward achievement. I was like them once, hungry, determined. Somewhere along the way, success stopped being about building something meaningful and became about accumulating power, about being able to make demands and have them met without question. And now? Maya asked. Now I'm trying to use what I've built to create something better than myself. He smiled. The foundation proposal isn't just about making amends to you. It's about addressing a systemic problem. How many other talented people are out there serving food or cleaning offices or driving ride shares who could be building businesses or curing diseases or creating art if they just had the resources and opportunity? Maya looked down at the letters in her hands, feeling the weight of possibility they represented, not just for her but potentially for thousands of others. I need to think about this, she said finally. Take all the time you need. The offer won't expire. Blackwell stood to leave, then paused. Whatever you decide, I want you to know something. That night in the restaurant wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. Looking back, it might have been one of the best. After he left, Maya remained on the bench, watching the ducks glide across the water. The two letters in her hand represented diverging paths, one leading to corporate success through a prestigious MBA, the other to building something from scratch that could help people like her. Her phone buzzed with another text from her mother. Did you check your mail yet? Maya smiled and texted back. Heading home now. We'll call you after. At her apartment, Maya found a thick envelope in her mailbox, not from Branford University or the Blackwell Foundation, but from the Small Business Administration. She'd applied for their entrepreneurship grant program months ago, never expecting anything to come of it. Inside was an acceptance letter. She'd been awarded a $50,000 grant to develop her business plan for a worker-owned restaurant collective that would provide ownership opportunities and education benefits to service industry employees. Maya sank onto her couch. The three letters spread before her like cards in a complex game of chance. Each represented a different future, a different path forward. The prestigious MBA that would open corporate doors. The foundation position that would allow her to help others while working within Blackwell's established system, or her own vision built from scratch, smaller but truly hers. She thought about the night that had started it all, how a simple refusal to kneel had cascaded into this moment of extraordinary choice, how standing up for her dignity had led to opportunities she never could have imagined. Maya picked up her phone to call her mother, but before dialing, she pulled up the calendar app and created a new appointment. Meeting with Richard Blackwell, tomorrow, 10 a.m. She typed a brief message. I've made a decision. Can we meet at your office? I'd like to see it before I give you my answer. The next morning, Maya entered the gleaming Blackwell Industries headquarters in Midtown. The security guard checked her ID and directed her to the express elevator. Executive floor, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Blackwell is expecting you. The elevator whisked her to the top floor where Angela Peterson greeted her with a warm smile. He's ready for you. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water? Water would be great, thank you. Maya replied, taking in the elegant simplicity of the executive floor. No ostentatious displays of wealth, just clean lines and thoughtful design. Angela led her to Blackwell's office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Richard stood as she entered, gesturing to a seating area by the windows rather than the formal desk. "Thank you for coming," he said as they sat. "I imagine you have questions about the foundation proposal." "Actually," Maya said, "I've made my decision." She placed all 3 letters on the table between them: the foundation proposal, the MBA acceptance, and her grant award. "I received this yesterday," she added, pointing to the grant letter. Blackwell read it quickly, eyebrows rising. "Congratulations. It's an excellent concept. Thank you." Maya took a deep breath. "I've decided to decline both your offers." If Blackwell was disappointed, he hid it well. "May I ask why?" "The MBA is tempting," Maya admitted, "and running the foundation would allow me to help more people immediately. But neither of those paths feels fully mine." She tapped the grant letter. "This does. It's smaller, riskier, but it's built on my own experiences, my own vision." Blackwell nodded slowly. "I understand. Sometimes the path with the most meaning isn't the one with the most prestige or immediate impact." "That's exactly it," Maya said, relieved he understood. "But I'd like to propose an alternative." "I'm listening." "Instead of me running your foundation, what if our organizations collaborated? My collective could be a case study, a testing ground, for some of the education initiatives the foundation wants to develop. You'd get real-world data on what works, and I'd get additional resources to help my employees." Blackwell considered this, tapping his fingers thoughtfully on the armrest. "A partnership rather than an employment relationship, equal footing." He smiled. "I like it. It preserves your independence while leveraging the foundation's resources." "There's one more thing," Maya added. "I want to create a mentorship component, bringing successful business leaders together with service workers who want to advance their careers or start their own businesses." "That's an excellent idea. The foundation could help recruit mentors from various industries." "Would you be willing to be the first mentor?" Maya asked. "Not for me. I think we've established a different kind of relationship, but for others in the program." Blackwell looked surprised, then thoughtful. "You'd trust me in that role? After how we met?" "People can change," Maya said simply. "I've seen it happen." Their conversation continued for another hour, mapping out how their organizations might work together, how to structure the partnership, how to measure success. By the time Maya left the office, they had the framework of an agreement that preserved her independence while creating meaningful collaboration. As she rode the elevator down to the lobby, Maya reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she'd been a waitress working double shifts, dreaming of someday having her own business. Now she was walking out of a billionaire's office as a colleague, a partner, with funding to build her vision into reality. The incident that could have broken her had instead become the catalyst for everything that followed. Not because Blackwell had rescued her with his resources, but because in that moment of refusing to kneel, she'd discovered her own power, to stand firm, to create boundaries, to imagine better possibilities. Outside the building, Maya paused to look up at the Blackwell Industries logo high above. Soon it would read Chen Industries, marking the transition to new leadership. Change was possible, even in systems that seemed immovable. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "How did the meeting go?" Maya smiled and typed back, "I didn't take the job. I'm building something of my own instead. But with some interesting new partners. Tell you all about it at dinner tonight." As she walked toward the subway, Maya felt a sense of lightness, of possibility. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. Building something from scratch never was. But it would be hers. And perhaps in its own small way it would help create a world where dignity wasn't something people had to fight for, where respect wasn't determined by wealth or status, where no one would ever be asked to kneel simply because someone else had the power to demand it. That, Maya thought, would be a transformation worth building. One person, one business, one conversation at a time.